The scene is the study of Professor Sidorov, an elderly and sometimes eccentric teacher of Russian. At the moment, the professor is sitting quietly at his desk and is expecting a new pupil.
Come in.
Are you Professor Sidorov?
I am Professor Sidorov.
My name's Tom Davenport. I've come for my first Russian lesson.
Please sit down.
Thank you.
And we'll begin. I'll start by pronouncing a few well-known Russian names and words in the way a Russian pronounces them. Please repeat after me. Sputnik.
Sputnik.
Good. Now try samovar, vodka.
Samovar, vodka. What about some Russian writers, Professor? I've been dipping into Tolstoy.
You mean Tolstoy?
Oh, Tolstoy.
Good. Dostoevsky, Turgenev, Chekhov. Repeat, please.
Oh, Dostoevsky, Turgenev, Chekhov.
Excellent. Now try Pushkin, Gogol, Gorky, Sholokhov.
Pushkin, Gogol, Gorky, Sholokhov.
Sholokhov.
I notice, Professor, that each Russian word seems to have a very marked emphasis on one of its syllables.
Like English, Russian is a stressed language. Every word of more than one syllable has a definite stress on one of its syllables. In Dostoevsky, for example, the stress falls on the third syllable, the yev. Dostoevsky.
Yes, but where Russian seems to differ from English is that its stress is more emphatic than ours. Dostoevsky.
True. Also, notice how we almost throw away the syllables which aren't stressed. Dostoevsky.
Whereas we rather draw them. We say Dostoevsky.
Yes, and the longer a word is, the more noticeable this difference becomes. Take Vladivostok.
Vladivostok. O. Your Russian O certainly differs from our O or O, as in coat or cot.
Doesn't it? Omsk, Tomsk, London.
Omsk, Tomsk, London. But you're unstressed O.
Don't let's move too fast, young man. Just listen for the moment to a few more words which you will recognize. Some towns. Leningrad, Stalingrad.
Leningrad, Stalingrad.
Berlin, Madrid, Chicago, Glasgow.
Berlin, Madrid, Chicago, Glasgow.
Now for some familiar political figures. Lenin.
Lenin.
Stalin.
Stalin.
Marshal Zhukov.
Marshal Zhukov.
Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev.
I beg your pardon?
Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev.
Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev. I say, Professor, what's that? Surely it's...
Don't say what's that, Mr. Davenport. It's time we talked some Russian. The Russian for what's that is «что это».
Что это? Что means what?
And «это» means that.
But how about is? Don't you have a word for is?
In Russian, the verb to be is usually omitted when it is in the present tense.
So I say, what that? Что это? And you answer?
Это телефон, meaning that is the telephone.
Oh, I see. So literally you say that telephone, as it were.
Yes, in Russian we say that telephone, for that is the telephone, because not only does Russian have no verb to be in the present tense, it doesn't have any articles.
No words for the or a, in fact?
No. Where you say in English the telephone or a telephone, we just say telephone.
Oh, well, this language is easier than I thought.
Don't be too certain of that. Что это, мистер Davenport?
Это телефон, профессор Sidorov.
Now, listen to the radio. But that is music. А это музыка.
А это музыка.
Yes, that's music. Or listen to something in the street. That, for example. А это что?
Это a motor car.
Да, это автомобиль. Yes, that is a motor car.
Да, это автомобиль. Let's try those noises again, please.
Это что?
Это музыка.
Now, what about this one? А это что? А means but. А это что? But what is that?
Это автомобиль.
А это?
Это телефон.
Да, это телефон. Notice you've just learned two new words. Да, meaning yes, and а, meaning but.
To which I can add one Russian word nearly everyone knows. Нет, meaning no. But how do you say is not? For example, that is not a telephone.
We use не. Это не телефон. That not telephone.
I see.
Now listen. Is that a telephone? Это телефон?
No, that is not a telephone. Нет, это не телефон.
Хорошо, good. That is not a telephone, but music. Это не телефон, а музыка. But what is that? Is that music? А что это? Это музыка?
No, that is not music, but a car. Нет, это не музыка, а автомобиль.
But what is that? Is that a car? А это что? Это автомобиль?
No, that is not a car, but a telephone. Нет, это не автомобиль, а телефон.
Good. Incidentally, you've picked up the way questions are asked in Russian.
It seems to me to be just a matter of intonation.
Yes, это телефон means that's the telephone. But это телефон with a rising note at the end means is it the telephone?
So the words are exactly the same, whether you make a statement or ask a question. You just use your voice differently?
Exactly. Shall I repeat? Это телефон. That is the telephone. Это телефон. Is that the telephone? Now, for some new words, Mr. Davenport. The word for who is кто.
Кто?
Yes. Translate, who is Sidorov?
Кто Sidorov?
Sidorov is a professor.
Sidorov, professor.
Yes. Professor is one of those convenient words which are the same in English and Russian, and which I use a lot to make things as easy as I can for beginners. Another one is student, a student. Translate, who is Davenport?
Кто Davenport?
Davenport is a student.
Davenport, student.
Davenport is not a professor.
Davenport, не профессор.
Yes. Sidorov is not a student.
Sidorov, не студент.
Хорошо. Now it's time we learn the words for I and you. The word for I is ya.
Ja.
Say, I am a student.
Ja, student.
I am not a professor.
Ja, nie professor.
Yes. Now the word for you is вы.
Вы.
Say, you are a professor.
Вы professor.
You are not a student.
Вы не студент.
Who are you?
Кто вы?
Yes. Who is Sidorov?
Кто Sidorov?
He is a professor. Now the word for he is on.
Он.
He is a professor.
Он профессор.
Yes. He is not a student, but a professor.
Он не студент, а профессор.
Yes. Who are you?
Кто вы?
I am Tom Davenport.
Я Tom Davenport.
Is Davenport a student?
Davenport студент?
Yes, he is a student.
Да, он студент.
Oh, I wonder who that is. Come in.
Good evening, Father.
Oh, I say, who are you? Кто вы?
Я Katya Sidorova. А вы кто?
Я студент Tom Davenport.
Yes, Mr. Davenport. This is my daughter Katya, who often helps me with my teaching. Now, I'm going off to take a rest, and she will run over some points of pronunciation, which we touched on earlier this evening.
Thank you.
Right. I'll begin then. I want to show you how to pronounce the vowels O and A. When it carries the stress, the vowel O is pronounced O. O. O.
O. O.
Yes. Vodka.
Vodka.
Opera.
Opera.
Baron.
Baron.
Formula.
Formula.
Yes. Omsk. Tomsk. London.
Omsk. Tomsk. London.
Now try stressed A. Pronounce it A. A. A.
A. A.
Yes. Plan.
Plan.
Algebra.
Algebra. That's algebra, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
Atom. Park. Flag.
Atom. Park. Flag.
Leningrad. Stalingrad.
Leningrad. Stalingrad.
Good. Now for unstressed O and A. These are thrown away, pronounced very casually and quickly, as in Vladivostok, correspondent, revolver.
Yes, where we rather drawl Vladivostok, correspondent, revolver, you say Vladivostok, correspondent, revolver.
Yes. Now I'll tell you something new. The letter O, when not stressed, is never pronounced O.
Yes, I noticed that. Where we say Tolstoy, you say Tolstoy. So O is pronounced A when it doesn't carry stress.
Yes,
Huh.
but only in the syllable immediately before the stressed syllable, which is what you get in Tolstoy, stressed in Russian on the second syllable. Also when O starts a word. The Russian for ocean is okean.
Okean.
The first letter is an O, pronounced A.
Ah. But what about unstressed O elsewhere?
Elsewhere it's even more thrown away, as in the second syllable of atom.
We do the same in English there, in that particular word. We say atom. And if you didn't know how to spell the word, you wouldn't know there was an O at the end or not.
Where Russian differs from English is that unstressed O is never pronounced O. So though you say Dostoevsky, we say Dostoevsky. First syllable very short, second syllable A.
Ah. Ah, because it comes just before the stressed syllable. Dostoevsky.
Yes, Dostoevsky. Or at a more normal speed, Dostoevsky.
And how is unstressed ah pronounced?
Exactly as unstressed O. A just before the stressed syllable, A elsewhere. Say propaganda.
Propaganda.
Yes, propaganda, not propaganda.
Oh.
Always move your organs of speech more vigorously when speaking Russian. Listen to these composers' names. Rimsky-Korsakov, Mussorgsky, Balakirev, Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky. Once more. Римский-Корсаков, Mussorgsky, Balakirev, Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky. Talking of composers, we are going now to learn the words for 3 musical instruments. After you hear each one played, I want you to ask me what it is in Russian.
Что это?
Это pianino.
So pianino means piano.
Yes. Said slowly, the word is pianino, but it's pronounced pianino.
The last letter is an O. That O is pronounced because it's not stressed. Said slowly, P-A-Ni-No. Pronounce pianino.
Очень хорошо. Very good. Let's just do it again. Что это?
Это pianino.
Now for another.
Что это?
Это тромбон.
So trombone means trombone.
Yes. Said slowly, the word is trombone. Pronounce trombone.
The vowel in the first syllable is an O, but that O is pronounced ah because it occurs in the syllable immediately before the stressed syllable. Said slowly, trombone, but pronounce trombone.
Очень хорошо. Now for our third and last musical instrument.
Что это?
Это флейта.
So fleta means a flute.
Yes. Said slowly, the word is fleita. Pronounce fleita.
The word ends in an ah, but that ah is pronounced because it occurs in an unstressed syllable. Said slowly, fleta, but pronounce fleta.
Очень хорошо. Now learn the word for end. It's E.
E.
Yes. Say a professor and a student.
Professor и студент.
Yes. Who is that? That is a professor and a student.
Кто это? Это профессор и студент.
Yes. Say a piano and a trombone.
Pianino и тромбон.
What is that? That is a piano and a trombone.
Что это? Это пианино и тромбон.
Yes. Now learn the word for oar. It's ili. pronounce ili.
Ili.
Yes. Say, is that a trombone or a flute?
Это тромбон или флейта.
Are you a professor or a student?
Вы профессор или студент?
Что это?
Это пианино и флейта.
Now, Mr. Davenport, next week we'll start learning the present tense of verbs. And the first verb we shall learn will be the word for to speak or to say. That word is, said slowly, говорить. Pronounced говорить.
Говорить. To speak or to say.
Will you try to learn that by next week?
Yes.
You'll find it set out in Lesson 2 of the BBC's pamphlet, Russian for Beginners.